Welcome to the fourth round of the Blitz tournament in Subotica. Now we are playing Candidate Master, who is rated around 2200, and he started with a first move e4, a response c5, he went d4, more a Gambit, one of the most annoying Gambits on lower levels. Now we transported to the Alapin because I don't really like to enter more at theory, I just want to avoid all that kind of stuff. But he surprised me with his queen d4 variation, where I could avoid that by going here knight c6, but here there is also some other tricky lines, such a queen b3. But I went d6, and then after queen d4 I went e6. He went knight e2, I went knight c6, bishop b5, bishop d7. So he gave up the bishop here, I took it back, and now he's trying to use his knights to control these dark squares. The endgame version in pretty much any Alapin line is very comfortable for black. So I took here, he took back with a c knight. And white has some edge, but I'm looking for simplification. Queen b6, he castled. Queen takes d4, knight takes d4, and now just simply rook c8, protecting the bishop. He took with the e knight, I took back with the b pawn, and now he pushed c4. This is a little bit wrong because now it gives me option for playing c5 and then on something like knight b5 to go a6 and to chase this knight. He will go knight a3, now I'll go knight b4, and here I have pleasant position because this knight is out of the game. Instead, I went knight b4, which is also possible. I'm still going for c5, but also playing c5 is looking like he can establish on c3. For white is now hard to decide what he's going for. Like bishop e3, I guess rook d1, rook c1 is some sort of idea. He went b3, which is opening up a little bit these dark squares. And I directly go bishop c5, which is, you know, very instant reaction. I should think here, maybe even e5 works. Maybe even this move kind of works, because knight is kind of stuck. And he goes here, I can play ideas such as this, and establish my position. But instead, bishop c5, he has powerful move, bishop e3. And now he has a threats. Like knight f5, discovery attack, then going here. I can go king e7, there's powerful move this. And if I take, there's bishop takes e5. So bishop e3 is a very tricky move. Now I'm thinking about bishop takes d4, and something like knight c2. And thinking about this endgame, is that going to be a good version of game for me? If I go something like bishop to b6, this looks natural, it's just waste of time, you know. I decide to take, takes, and now after knight c2, I missed one sequence. Rook at d1 and knight takes d4, rook takes d4. This is very Jewish. I'll play king e7, then bring the other rook to the game. That's very Jewish position. But I missed one thing. And that's actually bishop takes g7 here. He can include that. And after rook g8, rook c1, targeting my knight. I don't have good response on that. He actually did it. Bishop takes g7, rook g8, and now rook c1. I brought my back to b4. I should go on e3 and accept this endgame, where I'm pawn down, but at least I destroyed his pawn structure. When I go on b4, he's just pawn up. There is no counterplay on the king, so it doesn't really matter for the endgame to have open line and target the king, because king is very safe. He will just play g3, and there is no bishop, there is no queens. He went bishop d4, and now white is just simply better. I have to try to survive this. I'm playing too much with my knight, that's something I don't like. I need to activate my rooks. But on the other side, all my dark squares are very weak. He went rook d1, I went knight f4. He went g3, and okay, now I have this fork, but rook is protecting the bishop, so doesn't matter. I also have some ideas of rook d8 and to sacrifice here and then to go knight e2, but simply he can just take on a7 the pawn. This is hanging, so it's not a big problem for him. Yeah, it's a sad position for black, but we hope for the best to survive this. I went king e7, trying to activate my king, connecting the rooks, maybe at some point pushing c5, trying to restrict his bishop. Now I think the simplest is just to take on a7, and on rook a8 there is bishop c5. But instead he went for bishop e5, which is also possible. It targets my knight, and if I go on e2 check, he'll just move and then my knight will be trapped. This bishop is controlling all squares. I went knight g6 and trying to reroute my knight maybe on f3 square where it could look more convenient. He went bishop d6, I went king to f6, and now he pushed f4. So he's simply creating the gap for the king to enter the game. I went knight h4, so I found a beautiful square on f5 for my knight. And then maybe later proceed with something like knight e3. Also h5, h4. If we can create a target and open up the lines with a counterplay, that can look unusual for white. He went king h1, which I like because king in the edge of the board, on the edge of the board, is entering some patterns of checkmate. Now he stuck the rooks on the d line, and okay, I'm making some little comeback. Now it's not big advantage for white as it was recently. I went h5 and now he went rook from f to d1. Now I completely missed that I cannot go rook d8 here, and anyway even the trade is going in favor for white because there is bishop f6 tactic, like he can sacrifice the bishop to distract my king and then to win the rook. So instead I have a hard time here. Instead of h5 I should go maybe something like f6, kicking this bishop away, and then, you know, go for something like this. But instead I went rook g8, he went rook d7, I went king f8, need to hide my king this way. And now he simply take on a7. I offered a rook trade, but doesn't matter, I cannot take the control over the d-line. That's the only one thing I want. The control over the d-line. And maybe I can create something from that. He go here, I take, he take back, and now I play rook a8. He defend the pawn by pushing it. And now I have a problem, I can't go rook b8 because bishop is controlling that one. I went king e8, and he just dropped the rook back to defend the pawn on b3. I went c5 to lock the structure, but he simply 2 pawns up plus bishop against the knight in this endgame is much better. When king e7, he pushed g4. We exchanged this, and I went knight h6. I want to target the pawn on g4. He went bishop d6. Unfortunately, I can't go there because of g5. I went king d7. And now, okay, the pawn on g4 is hanging. If he pushes this pawn, maybe I can jump back. He simply took on c5. I went king c6. And now it's good. I have double attack, and then we are proceeding with some little counterplay. He went bishop g1. I simply took the pawn on g4. Okay, this bishop is a great defender. I can't do anything. It's perfectly outshining the knight. He went rook g3, I go f5. So if there is only a couple of pawns, not 3, I would be able maybe to hold this because my knight is more active than his bishop. But he started pushing. I went there, check. He moved the king, attacked the bishop with no reason, gave me check. I went back, he pushed the pawns. And now bishop and these pawns are simply going forward. I can't do anything here. Tried to control something from behind. If the bishop moves, I have checkmate on h2, but that's not gonna happen. He started pushing more of his pawns, and it's pretty much hopeless. I can't do anything. I'm just trying to hold with my king, and now he decided to sacrifice the exchange because he has super winning position. I tried to win the bishop here, but this is a famous pawn structure. Your king cannot hold these 3 pawns. After this check, it's over because he's promoting the queen, and I resign the game. That was a tough Moor Gambit endgame. I gave a lot of white here in this variation. I should not simplify that much maybe, and I should proceed with better variation. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.